The following podcast is an Embassy Row production.
Welcome to another episode of the Shaken and Stirred Show. I'm Nigel Barker in New York, and finally my co-host has returned, Tom Astor in Oxford, who's been gallivanting all around Europe, pretending to get stuck in France and sending me text messages of beautiful sunsets and trying to make me feel sorry for him because he's sort of stuck drinking red wine or rosé. And, you know, sorry, mate, I'm not sorry for you, but I'm very glad to have you back.
Well, it's very nice to be back, Nigel. And I did actually get stuck in France, but only because, and it was very, very nice to get stuck in France as well. It's the first time I've ever, the woman at the gate of the airport, I got as far as actually getting to the gate to get on the airplane, to get back to the UK. And, oh, there's the old clock. And the woman said, have you got your blah, blah, blah form? And I went, what do you mean? She went, well, you can't go into the UK without a certain form. And I thought, fuck me. I have just come from the UK, which has got the highest fucking COVID rate in Europe, into France with no fucking problem at all. But I can't get back into my own country without doing a passenger locator form, having pre-ordered a day 2 COVID test that I had to take when I got back here, which I've had to send off.
I can clearly see, Tom, you've had a wonderful holiday in Europe and you're very happy to be back.
Oh.
You're really relaxed and, I see you've had a haircut. You're looking all, dapper with your little haircut and what have you, but quite pissed off by the whole process, nonetheless.
No, just this country is ridiculous. It's just absurd. But having said that, I was in the south of France, a very, very good friend of mine, and it was wonderful. We had the most fabulous 6 days. Well, and then in the end, 7 days, I think, because I got stuck. And we were staying with him in Antibes in the south of France, and we decided on Tuesday that we quite felt like eating pasta, so we drove down to Italy. This is the great thing about Europe, which I guess you don't have in the States because of the distances, but hour and a half later, we're in San Remo. A completely different culture, an Italian culture.
Well, it's no different. I drive from New York and I'm, in Jersey, and it's a completely different culture. And they have pasta there, it's Jersey style. Coney Island, and they've got the longest hot dog you've ever seen. I mean, there's cultures here for sure.
Is it as good, Nigel, as the pasta that you get in San Remo? I'm now going to desperately look at the photograph.
You have to look up. If you go to Rocco's, you can get a pretty good pizza there too. Don't forget pizza was pretty much invented in the States. So,
Nigel, I'm not talking about pizza. I'm talking about a bottle of seriously delicious Italian wine.
On that note, what are you drinking? What are you drinking right now?
A board full of the most delicious cheese you've ever, Italian cheese. Ugh. I feel like I should probably get a little there. Probably will quite soon. What am I drinking? I'm cheating again. I've had to go to my first aid box again.
Crazy.
I'm drinking a Brockwell Park Bramble. These are like pre-mixed cocktails, and I just figure it's I don't know, gin, Chambord, fructose, and bitters, and it's absolutely. Do you know something? It's the third one I've had on as many shows, and they're absolutely delicious. Can't recommend them highly enough. They're created by Dick Bradsell Classics. I mean, it's a brilliant way to actually basically drink cocktails. Although I think it should come with a kind of syringe and things like that, and raspberries, which my daughter actually gave it to me. But didn't give me.
I know. I've heard this. You'd think that this podcast was sponsored by this particular brand, but it's not. People. Tom actually just likes drinking them, which is an endorsement in itself. I mean, that is quite
Maybe
something. He's also a cheesy bugger, and he's not making them himself. So there you go. Sometimes he does, but recently not. I've got Sex on the Beach.
Oh.
Sex on the Beach. I like a little theme. You know that. Sex on the Beach, people. It is one of the oldest, silliest, frivolous cocktails that's out there. It's so easy to make. Vodka, peach schnapps, Chambord, which is creme de cassis, orange juice and cranberry juice. Chuck it in a shaker, shake it up, and you're ready to go. It used to be really popular in the 80s and 90s. It's actually... as I taste it, pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not really my thing, generally speaking, but I thought I'd go with a bit of a theme. But look, we have a great guest who's coming on, but before we get there, we've got some booze news, and I want to just announce a little bit of booze news. This is missing. I'm not putting out an amber alert. This is a red wine alert, people. There has been a robbery in Spain at an upscale hotel restaurant, and amongst the wine stolen is a 215-year-old bottle. This particular establishment is owned by a man called Jose Polo, and it's a 2-star Michelin-starred restaurant called Atrio. And there was this could have been you, Tom. Maybe it wasn't, because there was 2 people, apparently, 2 English-speaking people in Spain, went to this establishment, stayed there, and then distracted the security guard whilst, in the meantime, actually went down to the cellar, robbed it of 48 bottles of wine, valued at over something crazy, over £500,000, I believe. One bottle alone was valued at £295,000, $407,000. It was a bottle, you probably know this better than me, in 1806 called Chateau d'Aquim. Does that make sense to you? Kim, thank you. I knew you would know what it was. It's a rare bottle. It's probably one of the only ones. And 6 bottles of Romane Conti, right? So, and that was apparently, those bottles dated back to the 19th century as well. They got away, and these bottles are so recognizable that they are saying that if they appear on the market, everyone will know where they came from. So that likely they're going to a private seller, a private individual who's going to drink them. So whether they'll ever get these bottles back or not is a mystery, and they don't know where these people went. They've vanished into sort of thin air, so to speak. So there you go. There's been a heist, a wine heist.
You know what? You know something that's a little bit like the lottery, isn't it? It's like, but worse, because in the case of these bottles, there's no way, only one person really is going to drink these bottles ever. So does anyone actually feel sorry for the restaurant? Not really. I mean, because no one really is going to spend £250,000 on a bottle of wine, right? So therefore, like, they can't be resold, obviously. Someone's going to drink them privately, and so what? Literally, it doesn't matter, because someone's going to drink them anyway. Like, who gives a shit? Do you know what I mean? It's not like, it's irrelevant.
There you have it. As I mentioned, we might have found the culprit. We have a wonderful guest coming up. Our guest this week is considered the #1 dating coach for men. She's the founder of the Wing Girl Method and the co-author of the newly released book, Be Her Hero. She's also a YouTube sensation with over 70 million YouTube views. Please welcome Marni Kinrys. Marni, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Shaken and Stirred show. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to speak with both of you.
Well, we've got, 2, I would say, experienced men in the sort of field of being married and dating and being. So, yet we could probably do with a refresher. And I think we'd love to kind of, ask you. I've got so many questions for you. I had so much fun researching and investigating and looking at all the things that you do, from the F formula to your books, to your podcast, to all your advice, to the other members of your team, the Chictionary. There's so many.
Oh, amazing. Fine. Then you do the podcast. You know it better than I do, obviously.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I ended up with too many questions, and I thought, anyway, before we dive in, we always ask people what you're drinking. What have you got with you?
Well, okay, so for me right now, I don't have anything by me, but my favorite drink of all time, and it was kind of forced upon me, and I'll give you that backstory in a second. My favorite drink is really just straight reposado tequila on the rocks with a lemon, a lime, and a squeeze of orange on top of it.
A lemon and a lime.
Yeah, I'm very needy. Yes, I'm high maintenance with my drink, but yeah, lemon and a lime, and it's like a little tiny squeeze of orange juice, of an orange slice on top.
So you're sort of creating a margarita without the triple sec.
Yes.
You've got the orange from the triple sec, and then you've got the lime from which you would put in a margarita, and then you obviously have the tequila. Do you have a go-to tequila?
So sometimes I actually forget what it's called, but it's in a green bottle. I totally forgot what it's called, but that's my go-to. I order it on Whole Foods. It's like in my shopping cart continuously. Whenever it finishes, I just order it again. But I forget what it's called. Sorry.
I love that. It comes in a green bottle.
In a green bottle. It's like this
This is
beautiful
the difference
green
between,
bottle.
you know, I mean, I got to say that's a great. I don't think we've ever had anyone who said it comes in a green. You know how many drinks come in a green bottle? This doesn't help anybody. I think
I know, I'm so sorry.
every wine bottle in the world, I think, is pretty much red wine bottle is green. First of all,
I'm
Yeah,
so
but I've never-
sorry. I should have been more prepared for this. I'm sorry. I was prepared on the backstory of why I
but
had.
what is the backstory? What is your backstory?
So when I was 20 years old, I had a stroke. And they have no idea why I had a stroke, but I actually feel like I know the reason that I had a stroke. I was under tons of social pressure. I was completely insecure, totally shy, never spoke my mind, had an eating disorder, basically a lot of pressure and a lot of stress is what was going on for me at that time. And that's why I believe that I had a stroke. And during that time, because I did have disordered eating or an eating disorder, I was messing up my gut. I was totally mixing around with my stomach, eating things some days, not eating things another day, putting certain foods that were not so good into my body so that I could lose weight. And that really messed up my gut. And I developed a ton of stomach issues where I would eat something and like instantly my stomach would just blow up. I would be uncomfortable constantly. And when I moved over to Los Angeles, I went to a whole bunch of different types of doctors. I went to a Chinese doctor, an Ayurvedic doctor, and I finally stumbled into functional medicine, where I met my favorite person of all time, Dr. Eric Miller, who did a ton of tests on me and discovered that I had formed many intolerances to most of my favorite foods, which were healthy foods, but still my stomach wasn't able to process them because I had something called leaky gut syndrome. And he helped me heal my leaky gut by prescribing me with a paleo diet, which is where the tequila fell into, because tequila is one of the only things that you can drink on a paleo diet. And so I have been a strict paleo eater, maybe not so strict anymore, but for a long time, I was a very strict paleo eater for about 12 years. And that's why my go-to drink is tequila with my lemon lime and a little squeeze of orange on top, because it's super yummy. It gets me where I want to go. And I feel wonderful while I'm drinking it, after I'm drinking it, and then for several days afterwards as well.
There you have it. My God, that is an explanation for why one drinks tequila. I don't think I've ever heard of something so
In a green bottle.
extraordinarily convoluted, but at the same time, you know, why not? I mean, if there's a way, that's extraordinary. You're taking the words out of my mouth. I don't know what an unusual story, but I'm sorry about how you felt, but I'm glad you're feeling better now.
Thank you.
The tequila doesn't mess with you, really. It just seems to be
No,
okay.
tequila makes me feel great. Yeah.
Well, like, you know, afterwards we'll have to connect. I'm a big tequila person. Tom hates tequila. I love tequila. We all have our own things.
It's the only sort of one of the only alcoholic spirits that isn't a depressant, isn't it? I mean, that's the point. Yeah, it's one of the only ones that isn't. Yeah.
So that's why you don't like it?
No, I don't. No, I don't like it because I got very. It's like oysters. I got seriously ill on it when I was in my, when I was 20 or something, and just I still can't like. It just no.
Oh, I get that. I totally
can't get back.
What you did get was you actually, totally got Tom in the first comment when you were like, oh, you don't like it because it's an upper.
Yeah.
Tom likes to be the depressant, so he's no.
I'm the happiest person I know. Thanks very much.
There you go. Look, let's get right into this. I'm going to read this here because it comes from something I read on one of your many sites and many places we can find you. But it says you spent the last decade helping hundreds of thousands of men stop being Mr. Nice Guy and become Mr. Holy Shit, I want him.
Yes.
So, what's wrong with Mr. Nice Guy?
Because Mr. Nice Guy is a fake name for Mr. Beta, Mr. Simp, Mr. Pleasing Me, Mr. Needy, Mr. I'm going to walk all over you. It's the nice way of saying those things. And nobody wants to be that person. Nobody wants to have those things happen to them, especially a man. And so I'm helping guys actually be really nice and really kind, but also be able to attract the women that they want and not have those labels put onto them and those things happen to them.
It's funny. I just heard you use the word simp, And that's an expression that my son uses. I've heard him say, "Oh, that guy's a simp."
Yeah, where do you think I learned it from? From my children. Like I didn't even know these words before. They're new terms that are being tossed out just to have more category. A simp, it's really just like a weak man, a man that gets walked all over, that can't speak up for himself. And sadly, that is so many people, but a lot of men right now.
You're all about sort of what women want, versus what they say they want, right? And this is an interesting thing. So this goes, I would imagine, for both married men as well. Do you speak to because in a marriage too, you still have to, you learn how to deal, you learn what your wife wants, you learn what she's saying, and I now have a daughter, and I'm who's also going through puberty, so she's there's emotions running high in the house, and I'll say something and my wife would be like don't say that, and I'm like, but what? And then she's like, say it this way, and I'm like, but and it's sort of like there's almost like there needs to be a translator sometimes, because you're trying to understand their emotions and how they read things. I understand you getting it as a woman, but how do you know what the man is thinking? Because don't you have to go?
Now it's because I've talked to so many men. I've been doing this for 17 years. And it's interesting because in the very beginning, I was just giving my opinion, my advice. I was interviewing other women and relaying that information to them. And then I got really deep into the pickup artist community, which was heavily dominated by men, male coaches teaching men. And they hadn't had a woman in a female run business be a part of that industry. And I came into that world and understand that there was a whole psychological side, a teaching side, a tips and tools side that could help men really understand how to do things around women, but taught to them in a way that they could understand. So I started learning more about how men work, how men process information, how men need things to be much more logical and surface level, and women are quite the opposite. So over time, I've learned how to break down and relay the information into ways that men can take on and then actually act out on their own, and like learn and take it in for themselves and learn how to do it. So for example, with you and your wife and your daughter, there are certain tools that I would teach for communication, so that you actually just sit there, hold space for the women around you and allow their emotions to do what they're doing. But when you allow that space for them to have their own whirlwind and be themselves without trying to logically calm down their emotion, there's a way that your daughter and your wife can actually explain to you how they're thinking and feeling without you needing to probe and prod for the information. And so a lot of this information isn't natural for men because it's not the way that they communicate. So for me, I've been very lucky because it's making me smarter around the men that I get to interact with, and then also help the men that I work with.
It's funny. It's sort of, sometimes I hear my daughter will even talk about some situation, some argument, something that's going on with her peer group, her friends, and then my son will chime in and say, "If that happened to me, I'd just punch him." And it was sort of like, then that would be it.
I know. Trust me, I wish I was like a dude. That would be the best thing in the entire world, but it's just so different for us. There's an emotional component. There's a social component. There's a how you're perceived by others component. There's the backlash component. There's all of these things that we factor into it that don't have a heavy weight on a man's shoulder. I wish I could punch some of my female friends in the face and then go for a drink with them afterwards. That would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. I mean, I guess sort of going back to sort of, you talked about pickup lines and that whole world. And I think that's it's a fascinating thing, because that's really where it all starts, right? It's how do you get to just I guess say not to say so much how do you get to first base, but how do you even speak to someone? I mean, guys, and I've watched some of your podcasts, and I've listened to your podcast, and I've watched some of your videos and the various lectures that you've done. I was looking at them this week, and I noticed there was one conversation you were having with a guy. I forget his name. It was something just very normal name, John or something. And you were in an art gallery, and you assumed that you were saying, imagine we're in an art gallery, and you're going to come and pick me up. What would you do? Just walk up to me and try and pick me up. He watched
everything. Wow.
And this guy just walks over to you, and he says something like, I just want to let you know that you're the hottest thing in here. And by the way, I'm the hottest guy in here. And then you turned around and said, well, guess what? My boyfriend's like over there. And he turned around and said, fuck your boyfriend. I'm here. Now, you liked the fuck your boyfriend part because it was confident, but the rest of it was shit. But that was a terrible, I don't know what he was thinking. It was awful. Right. But, that's just the worst kind of pickup line ever. But what, not just what are specific lines, but what sort of constitutes a bad pickup line?
The truth is, it's about how you say something, not about what you say to women. So I always say to guys, I could have 10 guys lined up in front of me and each of them say the exact like pickup artist approved line. And I am going to sense something different from each of them. One of them I'm going to want to go make out with. One of them I'm going to want to hold and like just, play with his hair and make him feel better because I'm so sad for him. The other one I'm going to want to be friends with. 4 of them I'm going to want to totally ignore because they're creeping me out. It really is about what's presented behind the words, not about the actual words that are being said. So there's like many of the men that come to me are like, tell me exactly what to say. And I always say to them the exact same thing I just said to you. You have to build up the how before the what actually resonates with women. Because if you don't have that how, you're kind of screwed.
I was going to say, like, I've mentioned this before on the show, but because I've had my wife on as a guest, but we actually, my first line to her, and by the way, when I met her, I was kind of a player at the time. Right? I was young,
yes,
right? But I was a bit of a player. I was modeling. I was in Milan. I had long hair. I was kind of in good shape, and I was doing really well in my job. And
you had options.
Options. You thought everything was going fine. I was told by her agent that he found this beautiful girl. She was going to be at the agency. You've got to come by and meet her. She's perfect for you. And he was, kind of trying to set us up, I guess. And I walked in and I saw her, and she has an identical twin sister, and they were both sitting there together. And I was like gobsmacked and kind of blown away. And was like, and all of a sudden, like literally everything in my head just,
I don't know what to say.
It went away, disappeared, and I literally, but it didn't stop me from. It didn't stop me from having the confidence to go straight up and say, "Well, 2 for 1." That was not what I was thinking, but maybe I was thinking that, but I didn't.
One was the one he was talking about. That's where your story falls down, Nigel. You just walked in, you've never met them, but you've seen her, but you don't know which one her is because they're identical twins.
They give different vibes because one of them had a boyfriend. That's why there was one, because Kimmy, as you know, had a boyfriend. My wife Chrissy didn't, and so she had a different vibe to her. And maybe we'll get to the rest of it. But what I was going to say was that my pickup line, and I was just going to say it to you because I always think of it as the worst pickup line of all time. That was the best pickup line of all time, right? Yeah. Which was the fact that I literally had been bitten the night before by mosquitoes on my arm. And I'm allergic. So I had 2 very big, really awful looking red mosquito bites on my arm that had like blisters on the top because I'd scratched them. And so they were like, it was awful, like sappy, like, and I looked at her and I was like, hey, how you guys doing? You're new to town and you just arrived. By the way, you got to be really careful. The mosquitoes are really bad this time of year. Look at my arm. And
I love it.
And it was the weirdest thing because my wife went, oh my God, I'm from Alabama. The mosquitoes are terrible down there.
Exactly.
And she sort of like felt sensitive and wanted to care for my arm. So you're saying it's a good line because it's
I love that. Well, one of the main ways that I teach how to start conversation is a method called OSA. So it's observe, sorry, I can't speak today, observe, share, and ask. So it cuts out the first 3 minutes of conversation of like, hi, I'm Nigel. I saw you from across, like all of that cheesy chit chat that just gets women to go boom, 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 put a barrier up. I don't want to talk to him, right? So it's starting the conversation as if you already know the person, as if you're friends, as if you don't see a barrier in place, right? There is no difference between the two of you and nothing for you to like leap over to get to her. So you make an observation, which is very similar to what you did. I have these things on my arm. They're huge. They're really annoying. Watch out for the mosquitoes. That's an observation about the world that you're in. And you're talking to her as if you already know her. So she has really no choice but to react as a caregiver and as a woman and say, oh my gosh, your arm, horrible. I happen to have mosquitoes as well. where I'm from, and then you have a connection piece. So I think it's fantastic. And the truth is, you didn't walk over as this model trying to be all cool, like I'm this model, and we're going to be introduced to each other, and I'm so cool. You're saying, I have a flaw. It's messed up. I'm showing it to you, and I'm okay with showing that to you. I'm not embarrassed by it and trying to act all cool. So I think it's fantastic.
Do you not think it's more also, I'm in Italy, I'm homesick, I'm missing my mother, I need someone to like step in for her. My arm, yeah? I mean, come on. Seriously.
I don't think that's what it's saying at all. But if you were to say it like that, yeah, I don't think it would have worked as well.
It's, for me, that's completely plausible. You know, Nige?
Yeah,
but
no.
even for you, like the way that I haven't really talked to you that much, but I can sense from you, like you own, I'm not going to label you as like a curmudgeon, but like you're owning that. You're like, this is who I am. I'm okay with it. And I'm going to put it out there. I'm not going to try and be prim and proper and perfect for you. And that's sexy and attractive on its own. It's a different kind of package and it's going to appeal to different people, but it's always going to be appealing because you're being authentic and transparent about who you are and not trying to cover it up.
Tom has had no issue his entire life having girlfriends, beautiful girlfriends, wives, you name it, wife. I say wives, not yet at least. But you know, and it shocks us all his friends are like, what the hell? But you know, but I'm joking aside, we don't say that necessarily, but but it's been like not an issue. And I think you mentioned confidence as being clearly a really important factor. And you know, Tom has it in abundance. You know, him and I have been friends since we were 14. We've always been, you know, two confident chaps, one way or another. Yeah, we're high school buddies, but we met when we were like 13, 14 years old. So we've been friends since then, and we're godparents to each other's kids and what have you. But confidence plays a huge part, right? In everyone.
Well, in everything, in every area of life, confidence plays a huge part. But I think the difficulty for a lot of people, for men and for women, is really figuring out how to be confident and what it means to be confident. Like, how do you get to that confident space? But yes, it's a huge thing.
I'd also put my hand up and say it's not actually, I haven't always felt confident at all. The confidence, I think, was actually quite often a mask, not anymore actually, but used to be a mask for actual chronic insecurity. In my, you know, which
obviously it was a mask that worked well for you and you could play it well. So that's interesting.
But it didn't. Ended up in a bunch of, you know, picking some, you know, literally ending up with the wrong people quite often. You know,
right. You ended up with the wrong people, maybe, you know, but ultimately, I guess it's one of those things where you've got someone like perhaps yourself in that instance where, yeah, you maybe didn't pick the right person, right? But you were able to at least date people and go through the process. I think, you know, there's that, and then there's also people who just simply can't even get a date, right? They you think on paper that they've got what it takes to you know, get a date. They look great, maybe they're fit, whatever, but somehow it's just not connecting. And I've got friends of mine who, you know, you think they've got everything it takes, but they're not dating, and they I know they want to. You know, but it's just not connecting. So something somewhere when they meet that person, I've known you, Tom, for years, and I know that you sort of have and it's not maybe it was insecurity, whatever, but you've always had I don't care kind of attitude, right? Regardless, you're like, whatever, I'm going to do. You're sort of unapologetic, and I think that, you know, whether it comes from insecurity or not, there's a confidence in that is sort of alluring and mysterious on how does he feel that way. How does he, you know, and I would imagine that's what people have seen in you historically, right?
Well, I mean, I've known you, for 7 minutes now, and I feel like I can see that right away. And I'll say something. So I told you before when I was talking about my drink story, but I used to be extremely shy. I never spoke my mind. I was always the little wallflower in the crowd. And I was very uncomfortable and very self-conscious about who I was and what I had to say, right? So I didn't have very much confidence in the past. I worked really hard to gain my confidence, but I still have many insecure moments on a daily basis. Even now, I'm a mother and a wife, and I am going to my kids' school later on this afternoon. I'm a part of the PTA, and there's going to be other moms there. And as much as I've practiced my confidence and I am a confident person, I will still have those nervous butterflies in my stomach when having to interact with these other moms who I don't know. But my confidence and my experience in the past is going to override that. So I might be feeling shaky, but I don't let it silence me anymore. Now I actually let it motivate me. So you may have been feeling insecure on the back end, but your confidence and your experience and your practice of your confidence was always able to beat out that insecurity that you were feeling, whether or not you made bad choices on the back end of whatever you did with it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I can see that.
We're just on this subject of, obviously Tom mentioned picking the wrong girl type of thing. I mean, are there certain things that people should avoid when they're sort of dating, like when you meet someone that you perhaps should be a
red flag? I mean, it's every individual, right? Like some people love people who just want to talk negatively all the time because that's what they like doing. So a positive person talking is like a huge red flag for them. A negative person is like, yeah, these are my people. I love it. So it really comes down to the individual. And that's the basis for almost every single one of my programs. The F formula, how to become a man women want. The first part of each of those programs is about figuring out who you are, what you want, and the values and goals that you're looking for in another person, whether it's for a one-night stand or for a lifetime relationship. It's figuring out those things that are important to you. So if somebody who really values their family is super important to you, then those are the questions that you have to ask. Those are the things that you have to look for in a profile. Those are the conversations that you have during the 1st to 5th date to figure out whether or not that person fits into the things that you're looking for. But if family isn't a big deal to you, or on the opposite, it's like you don't want it to be a big deal to anybody, you have to look for those things. So I wouldn't say that there's like a set list of things to avoid and a list of things to choose. It all comes down to who you are and what you want, but you need to take the time to really think about those things and plot them out so you can start looking in better spaces and places for those people.
You just mentioned the F formula, which is your information-packed step-by-step training course. You've apparently sold 50,000 copies, which is amazing. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Teaching the art of flirting to help men overcome the barrier of instant rejection. Yes. I love it because the F formula, immediately you don't think of flirting formula. Sorry, no. I was like, I immediately clicked on that to see what it was about. And then I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, it worked.
I thought I was going to get other advice, but no. Anyway.
Sorry, that's the point.
No, it's all good. I should know better at my age anyway. But, I guess I'm curious, how do you know? And I asked for sort of all men out there in a way, when a girl likes you, because I think sometimes, it clearly can be obvious, but when it's obvious, you probably actually don't want that girl. Maybe if it's too obvious, right?
Yeah, depending on who they are. If it's too
jump on you or something, then you're probably not going to be shaken off. So therefore, It can often be this sort of, guys don't know when to act. Like they don't know when to, and I actually watch my sort of teenage son with his friends and various things, and they're all sort of at that point in life too, where, and this is younger, this is teenage, adolescence, but you see them trying to flirt hopelessly or trying to say the right thing, try to be cool, try to look all, I guess, so, going back to that, that sort of question, how do you know? Like, is there a sign? Is there a dilation of the pupils? Is there,
First of all, there's like 30 different signs that you can look for. And if you have a combination of at least 5 or more, then yeah, you're at least on the right path. The interesting thing about women is that they can be attracted to you. You can flirt with them. They can be accepting your flirting, but that doesn't mean that it's like game on. There is a series of escalation steps that you do have to go through, and you can do it in 20 minutes, or you can do it in an evening, or you can do it over the course of 3 dates, whatever it is, but you can go through that escalation process and get
quite a lot of English towns, they can do it in like 15 seconds. It's amazing.
Oh, I know. I've experienced it in those towns.
Northern English towns. So Newcastle.
No, my boyfriend was from Colchester. He did it very well in about 30 seconds. So yeah, I agree with you totally.
Which is where my girlfriend's currently doing a law thing. Yeah, how funny. Colchester.
Oh, funny. Okay.
Yeah. That's a garrison town. I was discussing with someone earlier on how someone said it's an American actually. I was talking to me going, "It's Colchester. Is that a nice place?" I was going, "It's absolutely not a nice place. It's like really not."
Not? Oh my gosh, I thought it was like I was like 19 when he was my boyfriend. So I was
at the moment,
anything you do is amazing. Your town is lovely.
At the moment, it's the Colchester's the kind of actually again. Here we go. I mean, this is probably not related, but it's the center of a thing at the moment with drink spiking. So forget dating, just go spike someone's drink. but it's got really
They can do it in
unpleasant.
15 seconds too when over there.
But I said, no, because now it's not even dropping some rehypnol in someone's drink. Now it's even weirder and more horrible that people are injecting. So instead of dropping something in someone's drink or whatever you do if you're a predator, people are actually injecting girls in clubs. I mean, date rape drugs, and Colchester has been a centre. You mentioned it's been a centre of it in England. So, and actually, what's the police, because of, I mean, it's quite limited to what you can do. What they're actually doing, the police are now doing a big kind of plainclothes thing where they're just sending all these plainclothes policemen out around clubs. So when it's throwout time, if the girl's been separated from her friends or whatever, these predators that sit around,
Of course.
So I mean, it's nothing to do with a dating show because these guys aren't doing the dating thing. That's just, it's just horrible. It's just, but
Nice
that's what happens. There's so many guys out there who are like, screw it, I'm not going to learn how to actually be a human being and interact with the opposite sex. I'm just going to go the easy route. Or I'm really angry at women, I'm just going to like make them do what I want. It's awful and sad, and I have a couple of friends who experience being angry, and it's a horrible experience. But
let's get back from that. Go back to the 20 seconds in Newcastle, which is when these 30 attributes that and these things that need to take place. What are the main stages going back away from Colchester now? You did bring Colchester up there.
Okay, so we're going to go back up to the north, all right, and we will tell you. Yes, well, so like even subtle things like dilated pupils, playing with your hair, biting on your lips, softening your voice, slowing down your pace, leaning in, all things that show that I'm paying attention, I'm actively listening to you, I'm potentially a little bit nervous around you, and I'm trying to make myself look more feminine. It's not 100% these signs. Like lots of women will and can flirt with you not for fun, but because they're enjoying that feeling of flirting without any plans to actually take it to another level. But these are one of the first steps and things to look for. What you're presenting to a woman, she's being receptive and responsive to, and she's helping you go to that next level, or that when you take things to the next level, she's also agreeing to that next level. So for example, if you go from phase 1 of flirting to phase 2 of flirting, which is going from a very PG level, playful banter level of just joking around and having fun, and you say something, I'm going to throw like a totally cheesy line right now, but like for example, like I when I'm on a date, I love having a really good cocktail with, like, I don't know, just throwing something out. It's something like cheesy like that, like just something to say when I'm on a date, I like to, right? Which is taking it to a space where you're having that person envisioning being on a date with you. And she will either respond by switching it off of that topic of date, not engaging in your conversation in any way, or she'll jump on board and contribute to that conversation. Oh, you know what, when I'm on a date, I really like doing X, Y, Z as well. So that can be an indication that she is okay to continue escalating with you. You've put something out there that's a little bit more flirty, a little bit more sexual, a little bit more putting into the space of the two of you being together, and she's jumping on board.
What should you not do?
What should you not do? Oh,
I mean, I guess
sexual right away. Like, see, the thing is that when I do give advice, some things do work for some people. Some people can carry off some of these lines. Like, some men can go up to a woman and say, I think your energy is absolutely amazing. You're one of the sexiest women at this place right now. I would love to go grab a drink with you, or I would love to go upstairs with you right now. And for some women, they can be responsive to that, depending on who that man is, what value they perceive him to have. So it can work. But for the majority of guys who can't pull off lines like that, things that are too forward, too direct, that are too overly sexual, that are like grossly sexual and creepy, those things aren't welcomed right away.
Yeah. No, I just say, I mean, it just seems like, you see those lines sort of perhaps in a movie or something, like it's almost like a James Bond line, it's sort of, what he meets them and 2 seconds later, they're in each other's arms and they're making out, and you're like, well, what did Bond just say? It's sort of
yeah. And the thing is, I've pictured myself in that scenario sometimes, and I'd be like, I could see myself responding that way to that person in that scenario where I have more of a context about who they are as men. But in the normal world, I don't think I would be as open to it. It depends on what background you have with that person, what your feelings are towards them before they come and approach you. But as I said before, most average, like even above average amazing guys won't be able to get those same results.
Bond's a bad one, Nige, to use, because Bond, there are too many of those Bond films. I mean, Bond's basically is, in some of those books anyway, it's just is a rapist. I mean, it's like what would now be construed as rape.
Oh my God! Yeah,
acceptable.
Every old film
in the books, in Ian Fleming's books, and which actually in some of those 60s films as well, completely construed as completely acceptable then would now land you in jail. So Bond, I think that kind of, I'm not sure he's been tarred a little bit. I don't think you can I don't know if he can be, you can sort of just have the, I don't think Bond's changed. I haven't seen the new one actually, but apparently he doesn't.
It's quite different actually. Yeah, he's only has one girlfriend and one is a long-term lover and all the rest of it. So he's changed his ways over the past few years. But I know historically he's definitely the days of sort of 6 Bond girls as he goes through them one after the other, only to sort of basically have sex with them and then they sort of be killed on set, and then he moves on to the next one. Those days have sort of gone for sure. You talk about approaching a girl from a certain angle.
Yes.
Correct.
So this is like so pickup artisty. Like there are things that I have learned from the pickup artist world and from the psychological world. The truth is that anytime you approach a woman from behind, that is scary. We can sense you right away. If you approach straight on, that's extremely intimidating and doesn't necessarily get you the reaction that you want. That's why approaching from an angle it's safer. And also standing on an angle when talking to a woman is better as well. Like not standing saying I'm fully committed to you and I'm present. Like eye contact is good, but in the pickup world, and it's true, I have seen this when I put it to practice, like there's certain things that I sort of scoff at, but then I'll experience it myself and be like, oh yeah, that actually does work. So standing in front of a woman, if you're have your shoulders pointed towards her, then that isn't really a confident stance. It's much more enticing to a woman if you are sort of angled away so that she could lose you at any moment. There's a psychological trigger in her that says, oh, he's going to go. Like I could lose him at some point. Even though he's making eye contact with me, he's not facing directly towards me. And in most shows, they've also showed you when a woman's feet are pointing towards you, that means that she's committed and she's into you. So if you're approaching a woman and you stand with your feet pointing towards her, that also sends that same signal to her. And as you said before, when you know somebody's really into you, you're like, too much. It's too much for me right now. It's an easier, much more gradual way to approach a woman if you are slightly on a 45-degree angle with still making eye contact with her.
There's some shifting in from 45 degrees. Right. A little bit of salsa or something, and then ending up a bit of an angle with your one foot pointing towards, but one foot.
Exactly. You're like, I could be leaving in 10 seconds, or I could be staying with you.
Where were you when I was 18?
So I'm glad that you actually respond that way, because for guys like you have a history of getting amazing girls in your life. Nigel, you're a model. You probably had girls throwing themselves at you. So for a lot of guys who have had that kind of history, they're just like, I don't get it. That sounds ridiculous. That's so much to put into attracting women. But the men that I'm helping have never really had this success with women, or they've had minimal success, but don't really know why they've had it before for themselves. And so that's why these things are in place. They're like training wheels until, they can ride on their own. And then these things get thrown out the window and they can just do whatever they want because they feel confidence.
Have you had anybody, and this is a sort of serious question actually, but has anyone ever approached you, gone through the issues that maybe they got trouble, with women and stuff? Has anyone ever come to you about their inability to be able to date a woman, and you've ended the conversation with, perhaps you should be dating men? And that's but it's a serious question.
Wow. No, I've never had that. I actually had like my first transgender client the other day. I think the way that I put myself out there, that doesn't come my way. No, but I've never had somebody where I'm like, yeah, maybe you should be dating dudes. No,
Seriously, the wrong person here. You should be talking to colleague Kevin over here. He's
Don't
brilliant.
talk to Kimmy. She might be able to help you. No, yeah. No, I've never had that. I've never had that.
What's
Wow.
your transgender? That's quite complicated, isn't it? Where did you start with that?
I even said that. I was like, I'm gonna either sound like so socially incorrect right now, but like the way that my business works is I am a heterosexual woman who is telling you what is in my mind, and I'm picking the brains of over 7,000 women who are also this similar to me, women who like men and have had experience with men. So I not that I couldn't provide advice to somebody who is coming from that space, but I don't have the experience, so I can't put myself in their
You
shoes.
should employ them immediately. You
I
should
should. That's actually a smart idea.
open yourself up to that. I swear to God, I run a wedding and events business in the Cotswolds, and I've got friends. I've got some lesbian friends in France who are married and who obviously like the institution of marriage. So I run a wedding venue in a beautiful place in the Cotswolds, and they have tried on my behalf to put it on Facebook. They know lots of people in England, the LGBT community, and they've tried to put my venue. I said, look, the one thing I just don't do enough of is marry enough gay people, like men or women. We just don't have, and I'm highly attracted to marrying gay people because, as my lesbian friends will tell me, they've got this incredible disposable income. Quite a lot of them don't worry about kids until later on, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And
It sounds more fun too.
And that's so much fun.
Yeah.
But I can't get it. And my thing, and even with the help of my friends, putting it on the gay forums about how wonderful my venue is, how welcoming we are, and all the rest of it. It doesn't make any difference. And I think, rather like I just mentioned to you, that I need to have a sort of lesbian or a gay person in the office in order to speak
to get them in.
Is that Rose anti kind of woke thing to say? Probably, I don't know, but it's rather like a transgender thing.
Yeah. No, but you're totally right. Yes, the exact same thing. Like I don't fully get it, you don't fully get it, and they're gonna see that. So but if you have somebody
office,
maybe it'll be the same person. Maybe you can hire the same person.
And also, actually, transgender. Think about it. It's like 2 for 1 because you can also get them to channel their previous before they realize they were trans. It's absolutely amazing. So in fact, you don't even need to hire 2 people. You can hire 1 to do the job of 2 people.
Full circle employee. It's fantastic.
Like, there we go. I think we just sold something.
Only Tom can take it to some extraordinary level of completely off the beaten track on people. This is why I have him on the show, because he basically, he'll ask the questions that no one else will even think of even asking, let alone anything else. But I talking about just in the sort of general dating process, surely the most important thing, the most successful thing you can teach someone is to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because I think that if I was to think back about what it was like when I was dating, why I had success, I think it's more than anything was to do with the fact that I was just enjoying the process. Like you mentioned, like some women will like to flirt with you. You're almost like a cat will catch a mouse, not to kill it, but to play with it,
right.
Slightly torture it. There's an element of dating that is the game. It's the chase. It's like the actual capture is cannot always be that much fun. It's like, oh, it's happened now, kind of thing. I've done it. But the chase, if you can teach men to enjoy the chase.
I totally agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And the main thing that I end up teaching to men is to ask for what they want, because that's how they start having fun. So they're not having fun because they're not putting their real selves out there. They're not allowing themselves to be sexual in any way. They think that if they let the woman know that they're attracted to them, that they're being inappropriate or disrespectful, or that it's going to turn her off because they're going to appear needy. So that's not fun, right? If you're constantly going out and you're controlling yourself or like subduing yourself or cutting a portion of yourself off. So that one of the first things, it's the second thing, after I teach guys about figuring out what they want, they have to be able to speak it out loud. So the client that I was working with yesterday, He's super successful, has like mastered his domain in the business world. But with women, he's just like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I can't get it right. I just can't ask for what I want. I can't flirt with women. And as we got into our coaching session, he started revealing to me he never goes after the opportunities that he wants. He just has women come on to him, or just has women who are pursuing him. And he never actually says, I want to kiss you. I want to do this with you. I want to take you out. I want to approach you. He's never the one who gets to be the leader or even involved in the process. It's only been successful for him. What?
That's like the worst client ever, isn't it?
I know, exactly.
Like, well, for fuck's sake! I mean, sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, like, you should date dudes. That's what I'm going to say next time.
You should just be like, they're like, what's the problem? Like, this is not a dating problem. If people are just throwing themselves at you,
that's the thing. That's most of what I deal with. I don't actually date with dating problems. It's literally just teaching people to say the things that they want, to bullet out what they want to say, and then say those things. So it's not covered up in all this gibberish. Listen, I think you're super sexy. I want to date you. Do you want to date me? I want to just, get like what the room temperature is here. Get a feeling for what you're feeling as well. No, you don't want to date me? Great. I'm going to go over there and find somebody that does want to date me. That is the majority of the issues that I deal with, whether it is with somebody who is married and having difficulty with his wife, or somebody on the very front end who is having struggles with dating. They are out there dating for other people, and I help them learn how to date for themselves.
What about, for example, when there's a sort of a general concept that, if you're dating someone, or you're meeting someone for the first time, you're having that first dinner or whatever, if you talk about yourself too much, or you talk about what you want too much, it turns the other person off. There's an element of listening and asking questions about, finding out about them, not talking about yourself all the time and sort of telling everyone how great you are, all the things you've achieved, but rather turning it over to let them have the stage. Right?
Yeah. So I do something, it's called conversation threading. I teach people to actually thread conversations, but then I teach men about this really important tool that I call, it's LCA, or the 3 letters. It's learn, confirm, appreciate. And actually, I'm going to appreciate you for a second, because I don't know if you were like this before you started doing your podcast, but I'm sure your wife really appreciates how you listen to her. You've shown me several times throughout this podcast, like you really listen to what I'm saying, and you take in my words and you actually respond to what's been said instead of just adding your 2 cents. So if you're applying that to your home life, I would think you would have wonderful, at least listening communication with your wife. So you're doing a fantastic job, but many men don't actually know how to do that.
On this occasion, I might add, that's because he's listening intently. He's very
He's trying really hard. She's saying a lot of words. I know I'm supposed to listen. I know.
Quite often it does end up with him talking about himself and what he does and all the rest of it, but you can't get a word in edgeways. We just all sit there.
But that's because you have a friendship from when you're 13 years old, for sure.
But in your case, you're doing a very good job. Yeah.
Yes, he is doing a very good job. But so many men, I teach them how to do that. So it's listen, confirm, appreciate. It's listen.
My mother's said to me once, in her generation, so back in the sort of 60s, women were taught to basically, when you go to dinner or something, you sit next to a man, the man is the most fascinating thing ever, and you just literally sit there and ask questions. And that was what they were all taught. And you listen and you nod and you sort of stroke the ego and do all of that stuff. I mean, I personally can't stand it. I hate being asked questions about myself and would immediately turn anything around onto anyone else. Because I always find other people much more interesting, because I already know what I'm doing. So I always find other people things I don't know more interesting than what I already do know. That's just me. But
that's an amazing skill set, because you know how to put people into this space where they feel interesting, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't know how to do that, because on their own side, they're thinking, does she like me? Is she attracted to me? Am I doing the right thing? Did I choose the right restaurant? There's just so much going on for them internally that they're not even able to get to that space where they're like, yeah, I'm curious about you. Tell me about you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, but then I'm going to want to find out more about you. Because as you just said, I know myself already, but let's see how I am with you and what you bring out in me. But I also need to learn more about you to get to that space. But a lot of people don't have those conversation skills. And most likely, it could be from the background of this is how we grew up realizing how conversation goes. And that's what we did in our household. And that's what we passed on to you, right? Like I'm constantly teaching my children how to have back and forth conversation. I don't know if the same things that I'm teaching were the things that my father was teaching to me and his father was teaching to them. So I think, first of all, we're educating people a lot more about how to have communication, or at least two-way communication. But many of the men that I work with never really had that being taught to them. So now I'm teaching it to them.
How old are your children, if you don't mind me asking?
4 and 7.
Okay, so it's great, because I'm now going to give you some advice.
Oh yeah,
that I heard the other day, and I tried it. I have a 12-year-old. I've tried it and it works. So at the end of a school day, right, and this will work till they're about in their mid-teens. And I told this to Nigel. At the end of the school day, if you pick them up from school and you're in the car with them, if you turn around and say, "How was your day?" and they go, and they're just like, ugh, they don't really respond. Apparently, it's because it's just such a monumentally huge and enormous question that where do you even begin? But apparently, if you pick out just if for instance you want to try and instill in them the virtues of gratefulness, for instance, right? You will ask the question, what were you grateful for today?
Yeah.
Were you and if you ask the question a few times over and over again, they start thinking about what the meaning of grateful is, and then did you perform any particular act of kindness today? Was there a moment that you were really kind today? And then they start getting into this thing, kindness is good. And then they actually start finding moments of kind. So then you start the back and forth. Yeah. But if you ask them a dumbass question, like, how was your day? And you expect them to give you like a rundown from 9 till 5, it doesn't work. But if you pick little moments, like who did you sit next to at lunch? They're able to, is he a good friend of yours? You start actually getting information out of it.
Tom, talking about what you're talking about right now, what's interesting is that, and going back to what you said earlier about turning the conversation around and asking your neighbor about what they're doing, it boils down to genuinely, this is the problem. I think it's not genuine a lot of the times, genuinely being interested in who you're speaking to, or just people in general, right? So that when you go to a party, are you there to announce yourself and present yourself? Or are you there to learn? And are you there to receive? And are you there to, find new friends and be interested in the world itself? Or do you think that you're the solution? And I think that if you think you're the solution and you're the answer, you're going to fail. And ultimately, if you go thinking, I'd love to learn, I'd love to meet people, and I'm just curious and I'm fascinated, that fascination is incredibly contagious and charismatic. And then people likewise will open up to you and then ask you, and it becomes a sort of two-way thing, whether it's with your children or whether it's with potential date, right? And I think that's the thing that must be the hardest thing to teach, right? Because you talk about all these methods and things, but it has to go past that. These, even when it's walking towards someone, if the person has to surely think about the angle of approach, it's like, you're not landing a plane. It's like, it's not. This is something where it has to be a part of your sort of DNA to some extent. You got to learn it like you're driving. But once you're driving, you don't think about where the pedals are. You know where the pedals are, right? Yeah. So you don't second guess it. So there's a huge amount of practice that goes on. Yeah. What do you do to get people to just kind of, I guess, immerse themselves in this?
I just tell them that if they give what I'm saying to them for 30 days, if they give it a try for 30 days, they will see a change. It's going to feel weird at first. It's going to feel awkward, but they will start to notice people noticing them more, them feeling more comfortable in social settings, them being more open and actually having people being drawn to them. And if they don't see it after 30 days and they've really put practice into it, then they can just say, screw you, Marni, I don't want to listen to your advice. But I know from my own experience, because most of this stuff that I do teach in the very beginning is about building confidence and just being comfortable with who you are and doing exactly what you just said, which I think you said beautifully. And these are things that I have done. It's not a male, female, or, you know, one side or the other side type of thing. It's everybody can learn these skills to be more comfortable with themselves. And I've gone through all of these steps and tools, and I've gotten to a place where it is automated for me, where I'm not thinking, okay, how am I standing? Is that weird? Or, oh, I'm going to touch this person because I'm going to try it for the first time. I do it all naturally now because it's built in to my system. And that really is the only
guarantee. 30-day guarantee. So let's extend the 30-day guarantee. So if anyone comes back and goes, screw you, man, it hasn't worked. At that point, maybe I think I should come and work for your marketing department. At that point, you should say, well, Jeff, perhaps you should do it again for another 30 days, but this time.
Why don't you talk to my transgender colleague?
Try it on men. Yeah, maybe we
try it on men.
Come on, you just put yourself a whole
30 days. If you try it another way, that would be
try another 30 days. I'm going to give you another free 30 days guaranteed, but it's men this time. Go on, go out there. You know.
Yes, I'm so glad I came back to you and told you about my frustration. Thank you, Marni.
Before we move on, I want to ask you more about your book, Be Her Hero.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that exactly mean? I mean, obviously everyone loves a hero, right? Yeah. And there's a, you know, they save the day, they are chivalrous, they are charming, they are strong, they are normally confident. You know, I guess it sounds almost impossible for most people to be a hero. It's, you know, heroes are few and far between.
Simple. It's so simple. That is the thing. So this is the book that I co-wrote with a marriage and family therapist who's also a very close friend, Tara Harrison. And on my site, it's actually called Beyond Attraction, but for the purposes of putting our book out there, we called it Be Her Hero. But it's really a book that helps men learn how to emotionally connect to women and build trust. So this can be a female coworker, it can be your mother, it can be your sister, it can be your girlfriend, your daughter, whoever it is. And it really, exactly what you were talking about at the beginning of the show with your, you know, daughter going crazy and your wife saying, shh, don't do this. It really teaches you how to tap in to a woman's emotions so you can connect with them and they can feel more safe around you. And there's a whole system that was taught by, oh my gosh, I think it's the Harvels. I'm so horrible that I don't remember these things, but they created the system that's called Attune, which it's ATTUNE, and I'm going to forget exactly what all those things stand for, but they're ways of having safe conversations with the person sitting across from you, typically a woman, so that she feels heard, you feel heard, and everybody doesn't get their nervous system triggered into a tizzy. So for example, like one little tidbit of information from this book would be, for most men out there, the easiest sentence that you can say to any woman and to any child as well, this is something I'm learning in my parenting coaching too, is that when some woman or a child comes to you all frazzled and their nervous system is shot and they're triggered in some way, you look at them and you say, that must be really hard for you. I hear you. Like just that sentence alone gets them to calm down a little bit, and then you can really have a conversation. But the whole book really teaches about how to be there emotionally for a woman so that she can love you more. And I'm married, so I even have these struggles with my husband, and I'm coaching people how to do this, and also trying to coach my husband. But we'll have an argument, and I'll literally start saying the steps to him. All I want right now from you is just a hug. I'm getting really emotional. The things I'm saying out of my mouth don't make any sense. Come over and hug me. Like I say that while I'm in my own tizzy. But most women don't have the ability to do that, and what they end up doing is getting angrier, building up resentment, because they think that what they're saying is so clear to a man because they're presenting it emotionally, and it's not registering for a man. So when a man continues to fail over and over again to not give that woman what she needs in that moment that she feels like she's saying so clearly, she just becomes the opposite of hero. He is her villain. He's the one that makes her feel bad. He's the one that doesn't understand her. And that's where a lot of tension and resentment comes from. So this book teaches about how to do the opposite.
Are you also, do you believe in the love languages? I mean, what you're describing are the love languages. You know, I need a hug. Some people need, what is it? You know, affirmation, or you need time, or you need acts of acts of
quality time, exactly, gift giving. So I actually just wrote an article on this, but the more information you could learn about how people work, the more armed you are, right? These books are for a reason. So if you know, even in passing, you just say, oh, let's do a little quiz with each other, with a girl that you started dating, and you figure out what her love language is, and she figures out what yours is. I mean, then you have more information about her, and then you can be her hero. You can do the things for her that make her feel good. If you find out that her things are act of kindness, great. That is a point for you, that you know that she is going to feel really special around you when you do an act of kindness. That's going to feel absolutely amazing for her. Yeah.
Before we let you go, you've been amazing, by the way, and we could probably talk to you all night long with 100 different things, and pop open another bottle of something and just sit here and chat. But
no, it's almost time for my tequila now. Yeah.
No, seriously. But we've got something called Last Orders, which is a sort of rapid fire question moment. I've got a couple of questions too, Tom. So we'll probably divvy this up. I'll jump in first. But
I hope yours are more interesting than mine, because I've just developed my questions during the podcast.
As have I. I sometimes do this, sometimes I don't. But I've got a couple here because I don't know. There's so many things we could ask you, but simply enough, what's the number one thing men get wrong in the bedroom?
Ooh, they forget to connect to a woman while they're being sexual. So they're constantly focusing on whether or not they're doing it right or they're pleasing her, and they forget to actually see her in the bedroom. So if they saw her, they connected to her, they could actually get all those answers.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, it sounds so simple, but you're right. I can imagine that being a big issue. I guess my next one is quite simple too, but it's probably is there a worst pickup line or flirting sort of flirt? What's the worst, number one worst thing?
I don't think, I told you before, it's how you say it, right? That matters. So like, even if some guy were to say the cheesiest worst pickup line, I could probably find that endearing. Be like, that was funny. Like, so I don't actually think there is a really bad pickup line.
Okay, on the contrary then, is there a best flirt? Is there a best line? No, right?
No, it's the same thing. It's really about how you say it. I mean, if some guy came up to me and said like, you're so hot, I can't wait to stick it to you later. Like no matter how you say that, like, I don't think that's going to go off really well. So yes, maybe there are some really bad.
I think there is a best one as well, but I may have contradicted myself earlier on in this podcast, but Bond. Hello, my name is Bond, James Bond. That seems to work.
I like to date multiple women, and anything I do would be considered date rape, right?
Yeah, I've tried that. I've tried that line, Tom. It doesn't work. Yeah. The name's Barker.
No, it worked for him. That's my point. We're going to talk about you. There we go.
You did yourself with that one.
There we go.
Go ahead, Tom. You got a question?
Yeah. How important is, so all this date stuff is all good, well and good, and it makes perfect sense what you're saying. How important is smell?
It's really important. Like for me, especially, I have a nose like a hound. Like if you wear too much cologne or a really bad scent that I do not like, I'm never going to want to stand around you, no matter how into you I am, because I'll be fixated and focused on the smell. And
do you believe in the taking away the cologne aspect of it? Do you believe in the kind of pheromone? Some people literally. Do you believe in that invisible?
I actually don't know what I believe. I've seen lots of studies on pheromones that like are debunking the studies, and then ones that are praising the studies, but I don't actually really know what I believe. I don't believe that there's a smell that I would like that draws me to somebody. I can
tell you this: when I smell bad, I turn myself off.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how much she might find me attractive. I'm like, damn it, I got to take a shower. I stink right now. So, but I'm with you on the I'm not a fragrance person either. Really, I don't say I don't like certain smells, because I do. Yeah. I love natural flowers, essential oils to some extent. Certain things, low key. But the thing I like most of all is just fresh, as in like.
Me too.
Like just smells normal, fresh, clean.
Yeah, I like that as well. Actually, I do want to go back to the question about the best pickup line, because I will tell you. So we did, I have a master class that we do every single month where we have a different expert come on and speak about like a very niche topic. So we had this guy Cosmo come on last month and talk about how to meet women. And he had this amazing line that I think can be carried well by any man of any age. And it's just a really authentic way of approaching somebody, where he would go up and he would say, hey, I saw you from over there. Like, I gotta tell you, you have the most amazing energy. I was instantly drawn to you. My name's Cosmo. Like, and I like that line, because I feel like there's nobody who can kind of put down that you have a good energy, right? There's no, I don't want to talk to you, or I'm talking to my friends right now. You will at least engage in another minute with someone who comes up and says, like, you just have unbelievable energy.
You know, it's funny though. I've used that line, but not as a line. I think I didn't even realize it. I think I've said that to be, not because, but I love energy about it, and I'm, as a photographer, as a fashion photographer, the one thing I can capture is someone's energy, right? So if you don't bring energy, it doesn't matter how beautiful you are, you're boring because there's nothing coming out of your eyes. There's like, the energy's gone. But you can have someone who potentially, if you were to sort of describe them, people would be like, oh, that's not really my type. But when you see them and meet them, the energy level is so high that they're incredibly attractive, right? So I talk about energy a lot, and I will often say to someone, my God, you know, like, we just created magic with these photographs or something, because the energy that you had in your body was just electric. And the chemistry that was between us as I was photographing you, I really felt like I connected, and I could see who you are. I could feel who you are in the pictures, and you know, your emotion in your eyes. And so it is a very strong sense. So it's a real thing, though. It's not just BS. So perhaps you've really got
going up and saying you're so pretty, because okay, I'm pretty. I've heard it a million times, right? Like a model's gonna fit you. But if you say, like, there's something behind you that you're giving off that's just you, it's from what you've created, that I like and I see, I feel like that's one of the best compliments that you can give to a woman, which isn't really a compliment. It's just a sincere appreciation of what it is that you see. And I think that that's why lines like that work so well. And that can work from a 25-year-old to a 65-year-old or higher, you know, you can get to any age range.
Tom, what you got one more?
Yeah, I mean, incels, advice to incel. This is a budding group of people who I figure are sort of slightly self-indulgent, gothic, weird, sort of, you know, people who actually celebrate. Have you heard about these incels?
Yes,
these people who celebrate the concept that they can't pick up. Involuntary celibates.
Yes. So, I mean, these are really angry men. So
Advice.
There's a group called
Advice
for them. I mean, come talk to me. So there's I've been on a couple of podcasts, like incel podcasts, and there's another group called MGTOW, which is men going their own way. So there's other hosts of podcasts in that world who have invited me on to speak. And I honestly feel like having them. I feel like both of the hosts actually a year later moved away from both of those worlds. So I don't know, maybe just having a conversation with me or coming and watching my stuff. But I will say, these people are angry and frustrated, and they believe stories about themselves that are not true, and it keeps them in this endless cycle, and they don't have the support system to bring them out of it. So they choose to latch onto other people who are equally as angry and support what they're saying. And that's how they get deeper and deeper into trouble. So they're not swearing off sex with women because they can have sex with tons of women. They're swearing it off because they're angry and bitter towards women because they won't give them sex. So I think first advice to them is to really realize what they're doing, and then seek proper assistance, not from pickup artists and other people who are going to give you routines. Search out coaches and assistants where people can help break things down for you into small chunks of information, so you can really work your social muscle and come out of your literal cell and shell. And then hopefully see things in a different way.
Wow. There we go. I'm very, very sort of impressed to hear that you went on an incel podcast. I mean, I can't think, that must have been. Well,
to be honest, like, I didn't really know much about incel or MGTOW. When I got invited to be on these shows, I looked them up. So MGTOW, for example, men going their own way. By definition, they are men who just want to be men, who don't really want to bother with women. They want to go their own way. They want to go into the woods and celebrate their manlyhood, their masculinity. And I was like, that's great. That sounds wonderful that they just said, yeah, women aren't my thing. I just want to enjoy, like, the men around me This might be towards my other advice that I'm giving to guys to be with other men, but that's literally who I thought they were. I thought they were very strong-willed, strong-minded men who were just very confident in the fact that they had no interest in women and just wanted to be men. When I got on and realized how angry they were and then saw the comments from the other men who were listening, I realized how sad and frustrated they were. So I felt really, horrible for them. And same thing with the incels. I thought same thing. They're just swearing off sex because, they don't find it pleasurable for themselves anymore and it's distracting for them. So, but then when I learned more about them, I realized that was not the case.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Answer the question.
Podcast called Master Bates. Wow. On that note, one last question for you. Shaken or stirred, Marni?
Ooh, I like it shaken.
And why?
Okay.
Who doesn't want it to be shaken up a little bit? You got to toss things around to make it fun.
On that note, people.
On that note of multiple sexual innuendos.
And that's how to flirt. Yeah.
Right, there we go.
The Ask Women podcast, the Wing Girl method, the F formula, books of Get Inside Her, dirty dating tips and secrets from a woman, to her new book, Be Her Hero. Marni Kinrys, thank you so much. You've got so many things, so many ways to find you, so much. Thank you for helping men. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, thank you to them for listening to me and for letting me speak to them for 17 years. So yeah, thank you.
Really, really a lot of fun. And I guess everyone out there, you should all get yourself a Chictionary at the very least.
Definitely. Well, actually, so I want to make an offer to the people who are listening. So I have an amazing book called 10 Mistakes Men Make with Women and How to Avoid Them. And I want to give it to your audience for free. So if they want to get a copy of it, they just go to winggirlmethod.com/free book. Give their email address on that homepage, and then they will get a copy sent to their email. Boom. Yes, boom, there it is.
Well, and so Chictionary is going to be followed shortly if you take my business advice by dictionary, spelled with D-I-C-K, when you're catering for that whole secondary market that you haven't even thought of.
That's actually pretty good. I like that.
Let me get you back on once that's all up and running and going well.
Yeah, we'll check in a couple of months, and I'll let you know how it's going.
Yeah.
My God. Everybody, that was Shaken and Stirred. We love you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever it might be, whatever hour you're listening to us. We hope you have fun. Marni, thank you so much. We hope to see you soon.
Marni.
Thank you.
It's me. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. That is Shaken and Stirred. We will be back next week with another podcast and another fantastic guest. And stay safe.
See ya.